Hello learners, it's me again. Welcome to Unit 4. This is going to be titled Our Introduction to Finding the Law. First, your reading assignment is Chapter 4 of our textbook, Boundary Control and Legal Principles, 7th edition by Robillard and Wilson. And our basic assessment for this unit is going to be in your completion of a legal brief. Let me discuss that for just a moment. A legal brief, much like it sounds, is a short synopsis of the course of the particular case that is being tried in court. Now, we're not talking about a book report or the summary of all of the facts and all of the evidence presented in a particular case. We're talking more in this case about how particular elements of law are applied in a case or decided in a case that may have implications for future cases. This is one of my favorite topics in this particular class. We have several. We're going to begin with a discussion about presumptions at law. A presumption is that which we believe prior to coming into it. Now, certainly in a court of law, nearly everything is a rebuttable presumption, meaning we're going to assume that these are true facts unless the opposite can be proven. We're going to move on to some legal research. We're going to use some tools that are available both at the NMSU library system using your subscription service and your user ID and password for NMSU, as well as to present to you a few other courses or tools that you can use to access the case law, statutory law, and so forth in the future when you may not have an NMSU login and user ID. So looking forward, the first set of slides is about some common terms that are presumptions that we commonly use in surveying. We have a preview document, download the document, open it in a new window. The second portion of this unit is about finding the law, similar PowerPoints, and then I've included some tools for you, such as using the LexisNexis, that's a trademarked application, the academic version of our case, of our subscription is included here at the NMSU, and this allows us to look for federal and state cases, particular landmark cases, Supreme Court. We can research federal statutes, Code of Federal Regulations or CFRs, and state statutes, state code, state laws. Indeed, there are also some law reviews, legal references, and so forth. The video that I've included here that you see on the screen is directly provided from the it's either from New Mexico State University or it's from LexisNexis in general. In particular, we'll be focusing on look up a legal case. One can look up a case by using a citation such as 163 U period S period space 537, or by the names of the parties, example being Map versus Ohio. Or indeed, if we're just doing some general research, we can look under a general topic of law and look for a variety of cases that may have applied this particular legal topic. For the most part, you'll be using citations. I'd like to talk to you a minute about these citations. There are historically a couple of major reporters. These are sets of print books that record the judicial proceedings of various court cases. Many of them are regional. Where we live in southern New Mexico, the reporter that covers most of our cases is Pacific Second. Now there's others. There's the original Pacific, there's an Atlantic, there's a Southeastern, there's many others that are kind of regional in nature. The choices on how these have been arranged was from the West Publishing Corporation, which produces these sets of volumes that come out essentially on every 10-year basis. And in between the 10-year renewals, they produce a set of updates, which correlate to the new material that's happened since the previous set. This is a good video. I'm going to specifically suggest that everyone find this about looking for a specific case. More on that as we move on. As an alternative, we have the Law Library at the U.S. Library of Congress. This is a free research tool. It also includes guides to legal research for individual U.S. states and territories, and we have an FAQ, or the frequently asked questions about performing legal research at the Library of Congress. There are many other tools that are available at the Library of Congress website that I didn't specifically discuss, but one piece that I did pull out was from the Library of Congress, individual U.S. states and territories. I have chosen and included a guide to our legal resources for the state of New Mexico as provided by the Library of Congress. As I click the next button and let the next screen load, I'd like to tell everyone, if you ever get the opportunity to visit Washington, D.C., I would strongly suggest that you contact one of your local representatives or senators. What you'll discover is that the staff of your senators and representatives can arrange for a guided tour of the Congress Capitol building, sometimes involving ability to tour through the tunnels that exist underground, simplifying our security clearance and so forth. You're likely to encounter several political superstars along your way. On a recent visit, I ran into Senator Lindsey Graham on 2 occasions, and we had a fun little chat with a series of students and rode in an elevator together, and just a general chance to chit-chat. Beyond that, the Library of Congress, which is right across the street from the Capitol building, is an absolutely beautiful piece of architecture. I would strongly suggest that if you visit Washington, D.C., take the time, go visit this beautiful resource. Some of the mosaics in the tile and in the frescoes that are presented throughout are incredibly detailed and incredibly deep in meaning. I don't want to spoil it for you, but I would strongly encourage you to visit if you should ever have such a chance. Now let's move on to our legal briefs. A legal brief is a written summary of relevant laws on a particular issue and describe how it should be applied to the facts of a particular case. A legal brief is generally prepared for submission to a particular court in a particular case, with the goal of convincing the judge to rule in a particular way on certain issues. These are oftentimes prepared by legal analysts and legal aides that work in an attorney's office when performing research to present a case. Oftentimes, precedent that has been set in earlier cases is appropriate for us to present it to either the judge and or the jury. This is a good thing, and again, it's not a summary of what the case was about. Oftentimes, the case might be about contract law or a breach of contract or some other tangible yet unrelated issues that are being tried in court. But in the resolution of a case, it's often held that particular principles of law are either being adhered to or perhaps an opposing point of view, or perhaps modified. And I've got an example brief for you here, and this is to get you started. And I'll choose the preview window as I talk. In this particular case, I'm studying the case of USA versus Hudspeth. This case was determined by the U.S. Supreme Court, and it was settled in 1967. Looking first at its name and citation. This is the names of the parties, and the second portion here is the legal citation. This is in volume 384 of the Federal Second Series, and it appears on page 683 and following, and it was decided in 1967. On your assignment, you may notice that I have given several what I call parallel citations, such that it might be listed in the Federal Second, and it might also be in one of our regional reporters as well. In general, either one of those citations will get you back to the same material relating to the same case. This particular case was settled and became law in the U.S. Court of Appeals of the Ninth Circuit Court. The next section of the legal brief. Again, I want to tell you that there is no particular set format for a legal brief, but I think that this format that I'm presenting to you in this example is it's definitely representative of what most legal briefs look like. The judicial history is very, very brief. It's an overview of the course of the case. The U.S. sued Hudspeth for illegal trespass and cutting timber on federal lands. The Hudspeths claimed that they were not trespassing at all. At issue here was the location of the boundary line between the lands that Hudspeth had legal right to harvest timber and those that were federal. Hudspeth prevailed in the district court. This was then sent on to an appeal. The facts of the case, again, very, very simplistic version, summary of the facts. The facts of the case are tried and are settled in the trial court, but the legal principles become law when they've been settled in an appellate court. The facts of the case, Hudspeth relied on an original survey that he found in the field performed by Kincaid in 1872. The United States relied on resurveys by a man named Brooks that was performed in 1958 and again in 1962 were different portions. The Brooks resurvey apparently incorrectly retraced the Kincaid survey. So as you can see, this is not about timber, this is not about trespass. The legal principles that we're discussing as it relates to our course is, did the Brooks resurvey correctly retrace the Kincaid survey? Were there reasons for this? Were there any other evidence that had to be derived? In other words, the principle of law is, can or does a government resurvey change the lines of an original survey? By definition, we know that the resurvey is intended to restore those lines to their exact holding. The holding of the court shows that a government resurvey does not alter the original boundary lines when bona fide rights have been transferred. And in this case, bona fide rights are those rights that are received in good faith. We understand the scope of the project. We have attempted to locate ourselves in good faith, not with malice or with any evil intent. The reasoning, the boundaries were established by Kincaid. The Brooks resurvey was to retrace and restore the original lines. However, errors in the Brooks resurvey were subsequently uncovered, and the holding of the court is that it does not change the original survey. This decision was affirmed by the appellate court. There may be concurring opinions, there may be dissenting opinions, in particular as we get to the state Supreme Courts or the United States Supreme Court. It is oftentimes the case that we have a set of justices that are not in unanimous agreement about a case, but there will be several of them, or the majority of them, that concur. They might give us incredibly detailed information under concurring opinions, and typically there's one or more dissenters that would also be presenting material with us. Clicking my next button to move forward, and what I've presented to you here is a full set of cases from New Mexico. I want you to prepare a legal brief using the format that I provide in the example. You can, of course, modify this format, but remember, it's a brief, not a book report of the individual case. Scrolling forward, and you'll notice that, and for an example here, I have Bradford versus Armijo, and its first citation is volume 28, NM, that's the New Mexico reports, beginning on page 288. It's also found in volume 210 of Pacific Reporter at 1070. This case was decided in 1922. The portion in parentheses is the date of the actual event. Gallegos versus Ortiz, Ward versus Rodriguez, Land Company versus Salzo, Turner, Sanchez. Cordova versus the town of Trisco. There are many, many, many here for you to choose from. How you choose to select a particular case is completely up to you. In the past, it's just been students that have possibly recognized a name, possibly noticed a familiar location to them, and so your decision on which way to proceed with this is based largely on your own personal preference. You might want to review or at least look at several of these cases before you choose on one that you would like to prepare your brief on. Moving into the next piece, we're at the end of finding the law. Good luck with your brief. Good luck with your research. I hope you find LexisNexis to be as useful of a tool as I do. And the next time I see you and talk to you, we'll be talking about writing legal land descriptions. Quick review. In the previous chapter, we were inspecting an existing description, or two of them, for completeness and accuracy. In this section, we're talking about finding the law, and in our next section, we'll begin to write our own legal land descriptions. And I'll look forward to seeing you then. Feel free to post comments or ask questions. Your classmates are always here, as well as I. Peace out.